It's Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Corey and Mason.
Hello, and thanks for sitting down with us. This is our 11th episode of Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast, the first episode recorded in 2025. I am one of your hosts, Mason Schmidt, here with my best bud, Corey Knudsen,
Heyo.
as we get ready to talk about all things movies. As usual, tonight we'll be discussing what films we've seen lately, what new releases are on the horizon, an update on some physical media releases, and the latest notable developments in the world of movies. But first, it's been a while. It's been about 2 weeks. Corey and I haven't seen each other really since the last time we recorded. But Corey, how have you been? And second, what are we drinking today?
It has been a while. It's good to be back. Good to be in the new year. Whole new crop of movies to talk about. Very excited. You just came back from your honeymoon.
I did.
How was that?
It was awesome. It was the most stress-free traveling and vacation I've ever taken, and we got to go to Antigua, went to a sandals resort, which anytime I say I went to a sandals resort, it makes me think of The Office with Michael and Jan in Jamaica, Sandals, Jamaica. But it was awesome, and it was all-inclusive, so I woke up. We stayed there 5 nights, and I think Allie and I consumed probably like 70 pina coladas. We just decided coconut rum, and rum was going to be our liquor of choice for the trip. But yeah, it was restful. It was awesome, stress-free, great time. It's hard now that we've started this podcast because it was hard to I need to look at movie news. I need to pay attention to shit while I'm gone, and I'm also trying to lock my phone in a safe. So yeah, I don't know. It was a great time. I'm kind of excited to be back so we can kind of dive into, like you said, the new year of movies, even though it is a little bit of a slow start to the year. Corey, how have you been?
Man, while you were on your honeymoon, I was back here in Minnesota watching football, and last night I had some tequila sunrises that I made for myself that didn't have any grenadine, so it was just orange juice, a little bit of orange juice with a lot of tequila.
Disgusting.
Yeah, no, it was sweet. And then I played some Black Ops 1 from 2010 or whatever.
On a PS3.
On a PS3, because that's my most updated gaming system. Played some zombies, ripped some rounds on Nuketown, just me playing team deathmatch against the boys. It was great. Stayed up till 3 a.m. So that, you know what, 2 different lives we live, but both equally as great.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it is good to be back. It's great to be drinking some more Minnesota beverages, too. This week we've got Pryes Gold, which is a golden ale made by Pryes Brewing Company based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Really good. This is my first time having it. I really like it. Really cool cans.
Yep.
It's very crisp and nice little dry ale. So very happy to be ripping back into it. Let's get into stuff that we've seen lately.
Yeah. So like I said, I did just get back from my honeymoon earlier this week, so I immediately just went into catch-up mode. Went and saw The Damned, which we talked briefly, I believe, on episode 9 a couple weeks back, coming out, and it was kind of this new horror film directed by Thordor Pálsson, which I haven't seen any prior work from this director, starring Odessa Young and Joe Cole. It's a 19th century widow has to make this impossible decision to save these Icelandic fishermen that are kind of stranded out in their ship out in the water, and whether they can sacrifice their guys out to go save them, or if the winter is too cruel and they have limited resources, do they let them basically die out there in the water? The movie, I actually really, I don't know, I'm kind of torn because it's well made. It's well shot, well lit, it has a good atmosphere to it. The cast is really great. It does really good analysis of different themes of guilt and karma and how we live with our choices and what haunts us based on the decisions we make. The cast really killed it in this movie, and it was mostly a cast made up of people I didn't recognize, so I think that really helped with the immersion of this movie. Saw it in a very empty theater in middle of the day, and I think that this is a well-made film. I don't know many people that are going to rush out to go see The Damned. No one's talking about this movie. I will kind of say this film is marketed as a horror film. Yes, there are horror elements in it, but kind of my big issue with this film, as well as a lot of more modern horror films that have come out in 2024 and years prior, none of these horror movies scare me. And not that I'm not scarable. I can get scared quite easily. But I feel like the last movie that consistently scared me was in 2018 with Hereditary, which you and I saw together at our hometown theater before it sadly closed down. But I feel like movies aren't scary anymore, or horror movies aren't scary anymore. And when a movie is labeled as a horror movie and its main kind of tool in its toolbox is to have atmosphere and a slow burn dread to it, I'm like, okay, you're doing something creative here that I appreciate, but it's like if you went to a comedy film and you didn't laugh once, but you're like, well, this movie is made well, but I didn't laugh at all in this comedy. Is it a good comedy? No, but it's a good movie? Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with the Damned, where I'm like, this movie didn't scare me at all. And it's kind of not just this movie, but years past we had Long Legs, which I enjoyed that film. It was very atmospheric. There's some dread. There's some, I don't even want to say scary moments. It's just Nicolas Cage kind of giving an off-kilter performance. And the trailers for that movie scared me more than the movie actually did, but I feel like there's been kind of a drought of just seriously scary films, at least in the horror genre, which kind of upsets me a lot because that is my go-to genre. Like Empty Man, there's some really good scary moments in that. There's a really good moment in Night House with Rebecca Hall that really freaked me the fuck out, but I feel like I'm really just at a loss in terms of having a good beginning to end scary experience at the theaters. Nosferatu didn't scare me, which I did go back and rewatch, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it had that more of that atmosphere and that dread, which I appreciate now. But it's like when I see a movie labeled as a horror film and it's in that genre, I want to be scared. And when I'm not scared, it makes it hard for me to really say that I liked it, even if it was a good film like The Damned is. It is a good kind of characters in like solitude, just isolated and having to figure out things. It has like a bit of John Carpenter's The Thing to it, and basically them just trying to survive, and I really like those elements, but it didn't scare me. So I would recommend it if it's in theaters, and like I said, this is a little bit of a slow start to 2025 here, but if you need a movie to go check out in theaters, I would recommend it. Just again, my big critique, it's not scary, and damn it, do I need a scary movie sometime soon. Come on, Wolfman.
I feel like, yeah, it's kind of, we're in that elevated horror.
Which is a phrase I hate, but I get it.
It's what everyone else calls it, so it's like, okay, I guess we'll kind of call it that too, but it's produced a lot of great movies, but I feel like early 2010s with stuff like some of the Conjuring movies and Sinister, where they were like really well-made movies, but they also had a lot of really good scary moments.
Sinister was fucked up,
which is
just disturbing.
That's my favorite horror movie of all time, by the way.
Which I love because I think that movie is very underrated, and it's not in my top 10 horror films of all time, but I do really appreciate that film, and it just genuinely makes my stomach feel upside down.
Tapes that they
just disgusting,
yeah,
and scary, and it like genuinely terrifying.
Yeah,
so it's
and very well made too.
Yeah,
so I feel like we're kind of lacking that. I think we need to find that balance a little bit more. Another movie that Mason talked about that he saw already is A Complete Unknown, and I went and saw it with my mom, who I think I mentioned before is from the Iron Range, where Bob Dylan is from. So it was really fun to go see this movie with her, and there's a scene in the movie where like you see some stuff from Hibbing High School, and she was like, oh, there's the thing. So it was just really cool, really fun experience to see it with her. I love this movie. I thought it was really great. It would probably be in my honorable mentions for last year, or like pretty close to that, if I were to go back and do it. But James Mangold, he's 2 for 2 for music biopics. I think he's really killed it. Timothée Chalamet is great. Monica Barbaro gives maybe my favorite performance in the movie. I think she's great as Joan Baez. And what I appreciated about this movie is that it really is just the early years of Bob Dylan in the early 60s, and the transition from the traditional folk music into electric music, which is something I wasn't really familiar with, of the pushback to that. And you see at some of these, like the Newport Festival that they show a few times throughout the movie, of just crowds booing him and throwing things at him as he's singing some of his most famous songs. And it's just so crazy to think that, where we were at then versus where we're at now. And I think it was really smart because this movie doesn't focus on the rise and fall of an artist. It's more so about how an artist is perceived by their fans and by the industry itself and the other artists in it. And it's kind of like that trifecta where it's relevant today too, where like an artist like Bob Dylan is very independent and is going to do what he's going to do. He's going to play the songs he wants to play, and crowds and fans may not be as crazy about that because they want him to play the hits. And that's something still relevant today. Like, you go to any concert, like, we're going to see Kendrick in a few months. And we obviously he's going to play a lot of GNX stuff, which I love that album. But also, you're like, I want to hear you play Humble and DNA. But like, what if Kendrick doesn't want to play that? So it's that relationship between the artist and the fans, and I think this movie captured really well. But also, you have like Boyd Holbrook, who plays Johnny Cash amazingly in this movie. He's always rooting for Bob Dylan, be like, do your thing, like, you do what you want to do.
This is your music.
Yeah, exactly. Play what you want to play. So I think that's where this movie, in the biopic genre, I think elevates itself from just being the typical rise and fall, like I said, and really dives into some of those themes. I've been jamming out to Bob Dylan music all week, and I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it's definitely worthy of some Oscar nominations.
Yeah, you so succinctly just summed up why I think that this film worked for me on a whole, because, I'm tired of the rise and fall of artists in these films, and I think that this was just a good film about self-expression and evolving your style and being like, no, this is still, like, hey, this new electric music that I'm playing, it's still Bob Dylan music, just as my originals are, my folk music is. And I think the way that the film uses the Newport kind of folk festival in two distinct scenes, and seeing kind of the distinction between those two moments when he's performing different types of music and how he's kind of received by audiences is so well thought out, well pictured on screen. This movie worked way better than I could have imagined for me. If you had to kind of pick between Walk the Line and A Complete Unknown, do you know if you have a clear favorite out of those two? Because I get one's kind of a little more recent, so you might have more bias to it, or...
Yeah, I think right now I'd pick Walk the Line. I think I've just had more time with that movie and watched it more times. But I think they're both like equally as good. Yeah. Like, I genuinely think they're amazing biopics, and it would have been funny to see Joaquin Phoenix be Johnny Cash. Yeah. I had that thought where I'm like, Boyd Holbrook is great. He does an incredible
job.
But also, like, what if this was like a cinematic universe that James Mangold's doing of just musicians like in the folk industry? It'd be kind of funny.
Yeah, I really appreciate. I love Boyd Holbrook in the movie, and what you said about Monica Barbaro, she, I think, does give the best performance in the film. Nothing to no slack to Timothée Chalamet or Edward Norton. Everyone kind of gives a great performance, but she really stole the show for me and really surprised me and caught me off guard. But I'm really happy that you got to see it. I'm happy you got to take your mom to it. She liked it too?
Yeah, she loved it. She was good. Like, my mom typically doesn't love to rewatch movies a lot. She's kind of watched them once, and she's like, all right, I've seen it. As soon as we walked out of the theater, she's like, I want to watch that movie again right now. And that's a great sign. I love when she likes a movie too, so... That was great.
All right, Corey, let's move into a movie I'm sure you don't want to ever see again.
All right, so now we're going to talk about a movie that was just a darling of the Golden Globes, which we'll get to the awards ceremony for that later in the show. But it is Emilia Pérez. We talked about it earlier in the podcast, in one of the first episodes, I think, actually.
As it was coming out and having a limited release and stuff
coming out on Netflix. And this movie has been in the awards conversation all year, directed by Jacques Audiard, Zoe Saldana, Carla Sofia Gascon, Selena Gomez. And just to kind of do a recap of the plot, follows a cartel leader who enlists Rita, played by Zoe Saldana, who's a lawyer and is trying to help the cartel leader fake her death so that she can finally live authentically as her true self. This is a movie that I've heard everybody just gush about and say how amazing this movie is and how great it is, and then also saw some pushback against it, where groups that were represented in this movie didn't like the way that this movie portrayed those groups. So, very, very divisive movie, and I fucking hated this movie so much. I had so much anger watching this movie, which is very rare for me watching an award season movie, because at worst it's going to be something like Darkest Hour or like a historical biopic or something where I'm like, okay, it's fine, it's whatever. Like, I'm kind of
it's Oscar bait, but I can appreciate parts of it.
It's like a performance, a cinematography, something like that, where I'm like, cool. This movie I hated from start to finish. I can't tell you when they read the award for Best Musical or Comedy and this beat Wicked, like, who's singing songs from Emilia Pérez? I don't think the musical elements of this movie worked at all. They felt out of place. I thought they just felt fucking stupid. I hate it. I think there's elements of an interesting story here, and it doesn't need a musical attached to it. This movie doesn't need that at all. I think Zoe Saldana was the best performance in this movie. I think she's given some interesting things. Didn't care about any of the other characters. I didn't care about the transition of this cartel leader, and I don't want to like spoil too much, but like there's very clearly like two different halves of this movie, and the transition from the cartel leader, Emilia Pérez, I just didn't care about. I wasn't invested in. I didn't think it was interesting. It felt really weird for the character to make choices, not with like physical choices, but just their mindset and what they were going for. It felt weird. It didn't feel like it fit. I didn't care about Selena Gomez in this movie. She was just off doing her own thing, and then the third act just gets just weird, and I didn't care for that. So none of this movie worked for me. I was just so upset watching this movie. I had so much anger, and I don't like being mad at movies. I want to like every movie at least a little bit. So I think there were, at best, elements to a story about a cartel leader wanting to make a change that I think there's something there. I don't think it was executed well. Also, the director, Jacques Audiard, he's a French dude making a movie set in Mexico. It was filmed in France. Dude's never been to Mexico before, doesn't know anything about the culture, which you don't always need, but it helps. Certainly helps when you fucking know who you're directing a movie about. And so just seeing him talk in interviews and being like, nah, I didn't really care to go there. That also just made me angry. That's my reined-in rant. I'm trying to compose myself, but I know you like this movie more than I did.
I did.
Yeah.
So you saw it before me, and I saw that you put it on the show notes right when I got back from my honeymoon. I was like, all right, I needed to start. Like I said, it was kind of catch-up time where I needed to start knocking off some of these 2024 films that I missed, and Emilia Pérez was one of them because it's on Netflix and it's readily available. And it did kind of clean up at the Golden Globes. I had that kind of like, all right, there's some momentum here. Like, what is this movie? And I sat down to watch it, and kind of like you, not that the music didn't work for me. It actually did work for me. It just took me a while to get into it, and I loved the energy of this film. I will say, while the music, I overall, like the musical element of this film, I did overall enjoy throughout the film. I think you could take it out, and it would be, you wouldn't miss it. I don't think it changes much about the story. There is one, my biggest critiques of this film, before I get into like positives of it, there's a song towards the beginning that is very tonally inconsistent and weird with the rest of the film.
It's atrocious.
It is kind of atrocious, and it made me like, me and my wife watched it together, and I just was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, why is this the way you're posing this transformation for this character? Why is this the way that you're trying to, because it's a big thing that's going on, and it felt too barbaric and abrasive and played for a laugh, when I'm like, that doesn't feel like the right call for this type of movie, and at least for definitely this type of thing that's happening, this transition that this character's making. And if you've seen the movie, you know, I feel like what song I'm referencing, because it's very like blatant, simple, like a 7th grader wrote it. There is also kind of this shift in the movie after Emilia Pérez is now Emilia Pérez, and she's no longer this cartel leader. She is now a woman. She goes through this surgery to become a woman, which I thought that was really emotional, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. But when it makes that change, I will say the character's personality does change a whole lot, like complete 180, in terms of, you're a cartel leader at the beginning of this film, and you've shown us that you are okay with harsh violence, horrible acts. And now after this surgery, where now you are a woman, you're trying to completely undo that, and you're trying to turn a new leaf and become a new person, which, like, I get, like, this is kind of a metamorphosis of someone becoming someone new, but it didn't 100% work for me, and it wasn't, like, believable to me that this person is able to just make a complete 180. And then my third critique is kind of like what you referenced, the ending of the film, like last 20 minutes leading up to the end of the film, is it just takes a turn into like this action shootout kind of drama, and I'm like, we're losing some of like the good emotional things that I really was attached to, and now it just feels like a really sloppy kind of rushed ending to this character's story. Other than those like kind of bigger negatives, I really enjoyed this movie, and I wasn't expecting to really enjoy this movie. I did not know it was a musical until I sat down and read the Netflix synopsis before hitting play. And then that first song hit me, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? But like I said, it grew on me over time. I still think you could probably take that element out, and it wouldn't change much of the movie. I thought the performances across the board were fantastic. Selena Gomez is, I think, of like the three leads, the weakest link, but she still is serviceable. She gives a good performance. She's not in the movie kind of that much, at least as much as Zoe Saldana and Carla Sofia Gascon. Or Gascon, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to get it wrong somehow, so I apologize for that. Zoe Saldana, I think this is, of her dramatic performances, I think this is the best I've seen from her. Obviously, she's an Avatar, she's a Gamora, she's in all these big blockbuster films, and she's good at them. I remember her most and foremost from the movie The Losers, which I actually think is a very underrated action movie from I think 2011, maybe 2009, one of those weird odd number years. And I really liked her in that, but she, I think, gives a very stellar performance in this. Carla Sofia Gasson, I'm going to just go with that pronunciation. She stole the movie for me. I thought she gave a fantastic performance. I think one of the best performances by a female actress this past year, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm also hopeful that she gets nominated for Best Actress. This movie really worked for me. In terms of the whole argument about Jacques Audiard, whatever, and him making this film and the controversy surrounding this primarily being a French director, French writer, French production about stories that take place primarily in Mexico and having really no connection to Mexico. Part of me thinks, all right, you got to separate that from the movie. If you are critiquing this movie and you sit down and watch it from beginning to end, the movie that is within the frame, within that time, does it work? Does it represent something? Is it something that wins you over as an audience member, or does it work for you? And for me, it did. Even though, granted, he does not have any right to be telling a story about a place he's never been, has no connection to, whatever. There's an interview with Denzel Washington about like why black people should make films about black people. And it's like, yeah, you can get like an accomplished white director to make a film about black people, and you can get The Color Purple. You can get good films. But there's a line that Denzel says where he's like, but they don't know what it smells like when a hot comb touches your hair on a hot summer day. And it's like, yeah, you miss those aspects.
It's the culture.
So you miss the culture of it. So I get that complaint. It didn't bother me when watching the movie. It wasn't even a complaint or a controversy I knew about until after watching the movie, when I looked into some reviews and I saw people being like, well, I belong to part of this. I belong to part of the groups that they're trying to represent in this film, and it doesn't represent me, I think, in an authentic way or in a respectable way or respectful way. So I'm like, there's this give and take, and I don't know. Can you separate the art from the artist? Should you always have to? I don't know. It's kind of a sticky conversation and issue that kind of always comes up, I feel like, every once in a while. That being said, this is a movie I really did enjoy. I'm happy to have a disagreement with you on this one.
Last thing I'll really say about it is, like, there are some movies like this that come out, and if you don't like them, some people will be like, well, it's just because, like, it doesn't connect to you personally. Or, like, you're not a part of, a group that's in the movie. And I think, to a certain extent, like, I don't connect to a lot of the groups portrayed in this movie, so I don't have, like, that culture thing you were just saying.
Yeah.
But also, there's movies like Brokeback Mountain and Call Me By Your Name that I don't relate to those characters, but those movies are great, and I, like, emotionally, I feel for those characters, so I think it can work even if you're not a part of those groups, and you don't specifically relate to it. I think it can work, and this movie, for me, I think it's just poorly made. I just don't think it's good, and I'm just upset that it's getting any awards attention at all. I do not enjoy it.
It is a very interesting awards type of movie because it's so bonkers. Like, another thing I really liked is it's very unpredictable, but it's just such an energetic and wild movie that it's like, really, this is like getting awards accolades and stuff like that. And I think Jacques directed a good film here. I think he did a good job directing this film. I don't think he did something better than Denis Villeneuve did with Dune Part 2. I don't think he necessarily, if it does come time to Oscar noms on January 19th and we're getting that list, if he's on that list, I will be disappointed. I think he has some skill on display of trying to rein in all these different stylistic elements into this really kind of otherworldly story that just encapsulates so much. I'm like, good job, you did good. But I don't think that he did enough to make this film something really special. Like you said, kind of how you're surprised with it kind of being in the awards talk. I get that, even as someone who does like this movie. Zoe Saldana, I do think, should be in contention, as well as Carla Sofia Gasson. Selena Gomez is fine. But yeah, it's such an odd movie for this time of year. As someone who did appreciate it, and to kind of combat something that you said or disagree with something that you said, I thought that this movie, it emotionally, it worked for me. And I, like you, we're both white guys from Minnesota who are straight. So it's like, I don't have much to relate to, at least in this film. And I found it really emotionally resonant at times, and I found things to relate to with the characters. And I enjoyed it overall. So I'm happy to disagree with you. There is a movie that I violently had a harsh reaction to a number of years ago called Tar with Cate Blanchett. I hate that movie. I bought that movie on Blu-ray. I watched that movie with Corey and my wife. Or it was just me and you.
You and me. It was like the first movie we watched of that year.
And it's a good thing it was just you and me, because I don't know if Allie would have married me if she was sitting there with us as that movie wrapped up, because I took the Blu-ray case. I took the Blu-ray out of the player, put it in the case, take the case, and I fucking Gronkowski spiked that shit. And it shattered. We were cleaning up plastic Blu-ray case pieces in our apartment for the entire time we lived there. We just kept finding more. And I fucking hate that movie. I think it's ass. I don't understand why that movie got so many accolades. And you liked it. And now, well, you appreciated it more, I guess, than I would say I did. So it's kind of nice to have the role flipped, and for you to have a movie that you just can't stand, and for me to have a movie like, no, I appreciate this. I actually enjoyed it. So not often we disagree.
We don't get many of those. Yeah. This is a fun one.
Really happy to have it. Yeah. Moving on into a film that I really wish I would have watched this before we did our top 10 of 2024. Not necessarily that it would have made that, but I do think that this is a movie worth that honorable mention discussion, and also just for how bonkers it is, for how low of a budget it is, for how inventive it is, and exciting this movie is. I got to see Hundreds of Beavers, finally, directed by Mike Cheslick, who directed a film back, I think it was 2019, Lake Michigan Monster. The film stars Ryland Brixton Coltuse. I hope I pronounced all four of that man's names right. Olivia Graves and Doug Mancheski. The synopsis is: a drunken Applejack salesman must go from zero to hero and become North America's greatest fur trapper by defeating hundreds of beavers. I implore everyone who listens to this recording ever to look up Hundreds of Beavers if you're not familiar, and look at what this film looks like. It's men in suits of beavers, and it's just this, it's such a bombastic fucking movie. It's wild, it's so funny and inventive, and just fucking pedal to the metal. We're just gonna do it because we can. Make a story that is inventive and creative, and this is why I love independent filmmaking, because it's a movie made on a low budget with people that just desperately wanted to make something awesome and had just all the passion for it, and you can feel it on screen watching it. And it operates like a blend of Wes Anderson with like Charlie Chaplin slapstick in like a modern Looney Tunes era-esque movie. And it's some of the most wild shit I've seen in a movie, and it's so fun. It's primarily a silent film, basically, of this man defeating other men that are dressed up as beavers. And it's just the most wonky bullshit that I loved so much. It's so fun. I wasn't originally gonna like really take a second thought on this film until I saw Chris Stuckman, who was one of our favorite film reviewers, put it on his top 10 for 2024, and I was like, well, fuck, if he really liked it that much, maybe I should sit down and try and watch this. And I'm happy I did, because I fucking loved it. And Corey, I can't wait for you to watch it, because I think this movie has some of the most hilarious moments in it that I've gone back to rewatch in the past probably 5 years. Corey, where is your anticipation at for Hundreds of Beavers? Is this a movie you're kind of excited to watch?
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. Like you mentioned, Chris Stuckman, it was his favorite movie of last year. And then another critic that we both like, Dan Merle, he had mentioned it like earlier in the year, kind of when it was coming out, and I was like, it looks kind of interesting. But just the fact of both of them and now you singing its praises, definitely excited to check this one out.
Yeah, it's such a wild time, and I can't sing its praises enough. It's such a fun movie, and it might not work for you just because The style of it is very, very creative and inventive and special to itself. So it might not work for everyone, but for me, it worked fucking... It was amazing. It passed with flying colors. Another film that I watched on kind of my catch up on 2024, I did catch this film on Netflix as well. His Three Daughters, directed by Azazel Jacobs, who made The French Exit back in 2020. Film stars Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, and Elizabeth Olsen. The film is about a tense and touching and funny portrait, not really a funny movie, portrait of family dynamics that follows three estranged sisters as they converge in a New York apartment to care for their ailing father and try to mend their own broken relationship with one another. This is a film that came out, I believe, back in September of 2024 that kind of was, for me, I think the kickoff of best performance talk for female actors. And Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, and Elizabeth Olsen all fucking are dynamite in this movie. Carrie Coon and Natasha Lyonne specifically, they're kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum, and they're the most combative in terms of each other and the way that they talk to each other. Corey, I know that this is a film that you'll probably look to watch here soon too. So Corey, where's your anticipation for His Three Daughters?
Yeah, another one. I remember this one Best Screenplay at the Gotham Awards, so that kind of piqued my interest in it. So yeah, love all the actresses. Sounds like it's kind of more of a dialogue-driven, kind of just characters discussing things about their lives. So that's kind of right up my alley. Definitely excited to check that one out. Some stuff that I got into, kind of made a New Year's resolution of sorts. And I just wanted to work my way through some classic movies I'd never seen. I want to do that all year. I try and do it every year, but this year I wanted to have a structure for it. And so I'm going to start every week and watch a movie starting at the beginning of the alphabet and check something off my list I've never seen before. So got the first two letters of the alphabet done this past week, which were Apollo 13 and Boogie Nights. Two movies I'm very surprised I'd never seen before, especially Apollo 13, just because that's such like a iconic movie and like everybody's seen it, I feel like. But I think it's maybe my favorite Ron Howard movie, actually.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It's up there for sure. That and Rush are maybe
Rush
my two
is. I was gonna say
favorites.
Rush is the one that springs to mind, even though it's one of his more recent ones.
Yeah, but it's came out in 1995, and it's a great example of like an old school blockbuster where it's not an action movie. Well, I guess not like a superhero action movie, something like that. Like it's just everybody saw this movie. It's had a lasting impact. The cast is insane in this movie. Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, Kevin Bacon, Gary Sinise, Kathleen Quinlan, Ed Harris. And it got nominated for 9 Oscars. It won 2 for Best Sound and Film Editing. And it's just a great journey with these characters as they're on this Apollo mission. And the journey to get them back to Earth safely is really exciting, really interesting. It flies by. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Boogie Nights, which came out 2 years later, 1997, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, who I'm not always the biggest fan of. Yeah. I think There Will Be Blood is great, and a lot of his other movies I'm not as crazy about. They're ones that I respect more than I actually enjoy. But this movie is my favorite movie of his. This movie fucking rocks. The energy of this movie. The setting, like just the like disco kind of like vibe to it, and it really is just kind of a hangout movie of like these people in the porn industry, which right away that'll turn some people away from it. But the cast in this movie as well is insane. Some of my standout performances. William H. Macy has a scene that just made me fucking laugh so hard, but it's very dark and very sad. It's just, I shouldn't have been laughing at it, but it was really funny. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman just being this kind of schlub that's like trying to like weasel his way into these conversations and just, I don't know, everybody's great. Mark Wahlberg, I think it's one of his better performances. And this one as well was Oscar nominated for screenplay, supporting actor for Burt Reynolds, who famously didn't really want to promote this movie, didn't like this movie for a long time. But ended up being his only movie he was nominated for an Oscar for. And then Julianne Moore was also supporting actress. But yeah, both of these movies, really fun to watch them. Check them off my list from the late 90s. And I hope to continue doing this throughout the rest of the year. It's kind of a fun way for me to narrow down which movies I need to check off my list.
of these two, Apollo 13 for me is kind of the bigger surprise that you hadn't seen before. So I'm happy that you're able to check that one off, and also for you to watch Boogie Nights and have a more concrete Paul Thomas Anderson kind of filmography that you can kind of root for, because kind of similar to what you said, he's kind of hit or miss with me as well. Obviously, There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights, I do really enjoy. It's a bit of a long movie, but it never like overstays its welcome. And there's who plays Doc Ock?
Alfred Molina.
He has an amazing scene in this film that, while I don't remember every single aspect of this film, I've only seen it twice, and I haven't seen it probably in the last 5 years, but I distinctly remember when he is in the movie, and gives maybe my favorite performance in the entire movie. He is crazy. It's one of my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson films as well. It has a great energy to it. It's just so like easy to watch. It reminds me of like Wolf of Wall Street, both in like the excesses of like, oh, there's a lot of tits and ass, like there's a lot of like sex in this film, but also just like the energy of it and the how lackadaisical it is with showing that shit, and just like fucking lets you freeball through it. Like, it's such a fun movie, and it's just, we don't get movies like Boogie Nights a whole lot. And I don't think we really have gotten that since.
I feel like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was reminded a little bit of that.
That like hangout
just
vibe, yeah.
Not like a concrete plot, but just like characters doing shit.
And kind of with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Boogie Nights, that adherence to the setting it's in, and you can just feel the era that it's set in. I think Paul Thomas Anderson, he excels at doing that, maybe more, or maybe better than some of the more like acclaimed directors like Martin Scorsese, I think. Even though I might prefer Scorsese to Paul Thomas Anderson. Apollo 13, Boogie Nights. I'm excited that you're able to watch both of these. These are both great films. I will forever remember the DVD cover art that we had in my house of Apollo 13, of just that close-up on Tom Hanks's eye, basically. I'm like, oh, fuck, I love that movie. It is, a movie that was kind of a staple in my house growing up. Can't really say the same about Boogie Nights, but I'm happy I was able to watch that when I got older. Another couple of movies that I was able to watch in preparation for basically this recording, I did sit down and watch Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, which is on Netflix, directed by Merlin Crossingham and Nick Park, starring Ben Whitehead, Peter Kay, and Lauren Patel. If you have seen anything from Wallace and Gromit, you kind of know what you're getting into. The stories, yes, they matter, but you're here for these characters. This man who loves inventing things and lives to invent, and his dog that is just just desperately trying to help out and make sure that this man doesn't burn his house down, basically, with every invention. But the premise for this one focuses on Gromit, his concern that Wallace is becoming a little bit over-dependent on his inventions, and which tends to prove a little bit more justified when Wallace invents a smart gnome that seems to develop a mind of its own. So it kind of plays into AI, but a little bit. I loved this movie. I'm a big fan of the Wallace and Gromit kind of stories, and Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit is one of my routine October watches. It kind of cleanses a lot of like the really disturbing horror films I like to watch in October with something a little bit more family friendly, which this movie is such a great watch. It's so fun. It's easy to watch. The stop motion animation is stellar. This is maybe the best it's looked in Wallace and Gromit, which makes sense. You can see literally all the fucking work put into every single frame. It's so well done. And I think it's just such an easy watch. I can't really... if you have seen Wallace and Gromit and you like Wallace and Gromit, you will love this. I think that this is on par with Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Corey, I know you haven't seen any Wallace and Gromit. Is this the one that's going to maybe kick open that door for you, or no?
I think so. I just, it's an area that I've kind of been lacking in, but this one certainly getting awards buzz. And I like to try and watch everything nominated for Oscars. Typically all the stuff that gets nominated, I try and make it a point to watch it. So... since it's on Netflix too, it's pretty easy to check this one out.
It's a shorter runtime. It's fast. It's easy on the eyes. It's a fun movie. I don't want to say like it's easy breezy, turn your brain off, because that feels like it's a kind of a slide to this movie. The movie's good, and it's fun, and it's really witty and charming, and there's really good humor in it, and it's a good family film. And like I said, it's a short film. It's really concise. It's to the point. It's like an hour and I think 19, maybe. I don't know.
Perfect.
But it's such a fun animated film to watch. Aside from Wallace and Gromit and some of these more recent releases, I did also rewatch Nosferatu because our opinions on that kind of differed a little bit. I was a little bit less kind of gung-ho with the film. So I challenged myself to try and watch it before the honeymoon, and I did. I didn't really necessarily get to talk to you 100% too much about it after I saw it for the second time. I did give you kind of my overall thoughts, but it did vastly improve the second time I watched it. And the kind of lack of scares, I've kind of grew accustomed to with it. I do think that the dread that it sets up worked a lot better for me. I'm not still fully sold on Lily Rose Depp in the film. I think that there are still some scenes that are a little bit cheesy and not the best acted. But yeah, the second time, more so than the first, it really fucking sold me. And similar to Hundreds of Beavers, I'm a little mad that we recorded our top 10 already and we posted that for 2024. Not that Nosferatu or Hundreds of Beavers would be in that top 10, but I think that, like I said, they both would deserve kind of that honorable mentions conversation for me. I know Nosferatu, I think, was your number 4 of 2024. Yep. So I'm happy that I was able to rewatch it. It's probably a movie I'll see for a third time in theaters because Robert Eggers, his ability to capture, like what we were talking about Paul Thomas Anderson, a setting and a time period, he fucking excels at it. And I hope he never makes a movie in modern day because he is just so good at just really diving into, like, a deep dive into some place that we have no familiarity really with compared to present day. So I thoroughly enjoyed this film on the second time around. I will likely see it for a third time. Also, while flying back from my honeymoon on the airplane, I have taken it upon myself to kind of always, when I'm traveling, to take a new movie or watch a new movie on a plane and have it be my airplane movie. One of the big airplane movies for me was Pitch Perfect. That is a movie I watched for the first time on a plane, and I will always associate that movie with traveling.
That movie slaps, dude.
Awesome.
I fucking love Pitch Perfect.
That movie is so good, and it came out at the perfect time for us because we were in middle school for that.
I will always say, to go on a quick tangent, Pitch Perfect is our generation's Mean Girls. I will always stand by that. Just the same sort of movie, and it's so enjoyable. Anyways, back to this.
Pitch Perfect was kind of my travel movie. Every time I watch that, I think about when I was flying. So I kind of set out to watch a new movie that I hadn't seen to kind of recapture, like, all right, when I watch this movie, if I do ever watch it again, I will think about me flying back from my honeymoon. So I watched Robot Dreams from 2023, which was nominated for Best Animated Feature at the 2024 Oscars, directed by Pablo Berger, starring Ivan Labanda. The synopsis is just the adventures and misfortunes of a dog and his robot friend in New York City during the 1980s. And I really enjoyed this film. It's a good animated film. It's a nice, easy watch, kind of similar to Wallace and Gromit. There's some good emotional points, and they, without having these characters really talk, they try to say a lot about loneliness and companionship and what we look for in, like, friends and partners and stuff in life. So it was kind of emotionally resonant, but I struggle to see, kind of thinking back to the animated feature nominees last year, I'm like, what really, like, put this movie in that kind of conversation? It wasn't so clear to me, although I did really enjoy this movie, and I'm really happy I watched it. I just can't say I'm gonna, like, sit down and happily watch this movie for a second time. I feel like I've seen it and now I know what it is, and I enjoyed it, and it's good enough. But
this movie took the spot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem from getting an Oscar nomination.
Well, now you just pissed me off a little bit.
I haven't seen Robot Dreams, and I'll watch it someday.
Robot Dreams is good. Mutant Mayhem is awesome.
Jeez, you really went buck wild on him, Dad. That line from Mutant Mayhem. In the theater, we were laughing more than the kids in the screening we were at. We both love the Turtles.
We love the Turtles.
Dude, I fucking love the Turtles.
I love that movie so much. That is one of my top 10 animated films of all time. The fact that didn't get nominated for animation actually makes me a little bit more mad at Robot Dreams because it's standard 2D animation. It's a sweet story, but the animation on display in Mutant Mayhem fucking excels, where this movie feels kind of basic.
We can have a whole Turtles side episode.
I wore a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt to that movie, and we saw it. Was it before a beer league softball
right
game?
After our game, yeah.
Right after our game, and we also got handed 3D glasses for the movie, which wasn't in 3D, so we just had these 3D glasses.
Very
for
confused.
It was really confusing, but wow, what a fucking movie that. Anyway, this was supposed to be about Mutant Mayhem. I was supposed to be talking about Robot Dreams, but
we'll do a Turtles night sometime.
What a fucking movie!
It's great stuff.
God.
All right, getting into some of the TV stuff. First one that I've seen here was What If Season 3. This is the MCU show, the animated show, that is based on the comics that are essentially all of these different what if scenarios within the MCU. And the 3 seasons of the show have had interesting a couple of interesting episodes each season, and then they kind of lose that and do a team up at the end of every season, which I don't want in this show when you can literally do anything. You can do a what if of any scenario, and they just decide to kind of do another like Avengers team up. And season 3 I think is the weakest of the 3 seasons. The only like couple episodes that stood out to me was one, what if the emergence happened, which the emergence is in the Eternals. If you've seen that, it's when the Celestial like comes out and destroys the Earth basically, and it's like the Earth is in different fragments, and it's kind of a post-apocalyptic thing, and Mysterio is the villain in it, which I love Mysterio.
Oh.
I think he's really cool, and I forget the voice actor for Mysterio in this episode. It wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal, but it was like an older Mysterio, and he's kind of behind a lot of this stuff. It was really interesting. I thought it was cool. But a lot of the other episodes...
I heard there's a Kat Dennings and Howard the
There's
Duck
an episode that... Yeah, it's Kat Dennings' character from the Thor movies, who you all remember her, right? Darcy?
She was great. She was better in WandaVision than she was in the Thor movies.
100%. But it's her and Howard the Duck having a kid, and that kid being important. So
What
there's
a lucky
that.
duck.
But then there's also... Right? Yeah. But then there's also like a really cool Western episode that takes place in... I forget the exact year, but I think it's like in the 1800s, where Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop are in like this Western and on a train, and they're fighting people, and it's really cool. It's like, that's a cool what if scenario. But I think the show overall in its 3 seasons has just failed to kind of like do what the premise is built on. It's like, you can literally just do random shit and make it interesting, and they just keep picking these weird things to do. So very disappointing. This is the final season of What If, and I'm honestly okay with that. I think there are some strong episodes in each season. If you are to watch any What If episode, if you're not keen on watching the whole show, season 1, there's a Doctor Strange episode that's very emotionally resonant and is great, and I think is the best episode of the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Does each season, is it kind of like the standard Disney Plus format of like 6 episodes, or how many episodes do they do per season?
I think it's like 8 episodes. This one,
so I've only seen 2, and I think from the first season I saw the What If Black Panther was Star-Lord kind of one,
Yeah.
and I saw the Captain Britain, not Captain Britain,
Captain Carter.
Captain Carter,
Yeah.
Captain Carter, and
So, yeah.
I like that episode, but I think I've gotten to the point with like the Disney Plus Marvel or Marvel shows where I'm like, you know what? I think I'm done watching them, with the exception of Daredevil: Born Again. I think I don't need to see them. I might go back and watch Loki season 2 just because I know how much you love it, and I love the first season of Loki. That is actually my favorite MCU show that I've seen, even though I've only seen the first season. So I'll probably go back and see that, but I never finished Hawkeye. I don't know if I will. I know my wife maybe wants to watch it because Haley Steinfeld's in it. So
yeah, it's What If isn't like a must-watch for MCU stuff. Yeah. Like I said, there's a few episodes throughout each season that I think are cool, but overall, a little bit disappointing.
It's one I feel fine skipping.
Yeah, no, I would, that's all right. To a different animated show in a different superhero universe. It just wrapped up its first season this week as Creature Commandos. We've been singing its praises over the past few weeks.
Fuck yes.
This week, kind of covering the last couple episodes, obviously propelling the main plot of, you know, the princess and Pokolistan and all that stuff, but also giving us some Dr. Phosphorus and Nina Mazursky backstories. This show is so good. It's such a great kickoff for the DCU. It is exactly what you think a James Gunn animated ragtag team of what you've seen him do with Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad. The fucking Dr. Phosphorus episode is so cool.
So awesome.
I love his backstory. It's heartbreaking, but also like really interesting. You get to see some of Gotham. Spoiler alert, you get to see a little bit of Batman in there for a brief second, and I think they showed him the right amount. I didn't need any more of him.
Yep.
I needed a glimpse, and then it cuts away. Perfect.
I didn't need any of them, and when I heard about the spoiler that he was in the episode, I was like, fuck, I don't want until we have a Batman cast, I don't want to know anything about this new DCU Batman.
He was thick.
He's a big bitch.
Yeah.
And when I saw him on screen, when I actually watched that episode, because I saw the spoiler before, I was like, okay, I'm happy with it. I love just that kind of, he's in shadow, he's looking down through a skylight and lightning flashes behind him, and you see basically just his frame, and he's a thick bitch. Like,
perfect.
I'm down for it. Give me Alan Richardson as Batman or someone big and bulky. Like, hell yeah, I loved it when Ben Affleck was Batman, so which might be a little bit more of a hot take, but I love this show so fucking much. And I think there are aspects of the most recent episode that I kind of do want to talk about spoilers, but specifically I think the two best episodes of this show are the Weasel-centered episode where we learn about his backstory, but the best, bar none, for me, Dr. Phosphorus' episode. This episode fucking, like, stabbed me and turned the knife. Like, it upset me. It showed me some disgusting imagery, and this is something that has been kind of new to me as I've this is going to sound like a tangent until it's not. As I've grown up and as I've had a relationship, and now that I'm married, I remember having conversations with a teacher of mine when I was younger where he was like, yeah, I used to love Pulp Fiction. That used to be one of my favorite movies of all time, but I don't watch it anymore. And I'm like, well, why don't you watch it anymore if it's one of your favorite movies? And he's like, well, I have kids now, and it's hard to watch, like, some upsetting violence or bombastic violence, and it sometimes, like, makes me upset and makes me, like, scared. And I'm like, I don't get that. Like, I have no idea what the fuck that means. And now that I'm married, people always ask you, like, oh, when you get married, what changes? And I always say nothing. But, like, there's one thing that's really changed. It's been within me, and it's that I get more scared about things, about bad things happening to me, to my wife, Allie. Like, I love her so much, and I want things to be good. And seeing what happens to Dr. Phosphorus' wife in this episode about Dr. Phosphorus, episode, I believe, 6, and how he's framed for the murder, and how he is basically gets to see his dead wife bled out on the floor, and his hands get jammed into her blood, and then he has to touch the murder weapon and touch his dead wife's body. And I was watching this episode with my wife, and I was just like, fuck, like, an animated show is, like, kind of ruining me right now. Like, I didn't expect that, but also, like, fuck, I hate this so much. So yeah, that's a little bit of a tidbit of something that I've kind of developed as I've gotten further into my relationship with my wife. It's just like I get more scared of things, and this episode really tuned into that and really fucked me up a little bit. But I love Dr. Phosphorus. I'm also very nostalgic for this character because he was in Batman Beyond a little bit, and I grew up loving and watching that show. Also, I made a specific note. This show has quickly become one of my favorite shows in recent memory. I haven't really watched a show week to week like this in a long, long time. But being able to cut in this show from seeing Dr. Phosphorus being framed for his wife's murder in that very grisly scene that I just outlined to you, and then cutting to Weasel playing fetch with wolves.
I was going to bring this up. I was going to say the exact same.
Best cuts I've ever seen.
And the fact that it works.
It's so sad, and it's like
fetch.
funny and sweet.
It's just,
Weasel. This show is a masterclass in balancing tones, which is why I'm like, James Gunn, you're killing this, and I'm so excited for your Superman. I'm so excited to see what you do, but I think James Gunn is easily the best thing to happen to DC since Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. I think James Gunn is God sent, Moadib, Usul, fucking savior, Kwisatz Haderach. Like, I
need to see a little bit more. Because I think he does this really well. I think he does, and we talked about it in our Superman trailer reaction a couple weeks back. But I think he does group things really well. With the Superman movie, I don't necessarily need a group movie, so I need to see another project to be like, all right, you got this. But this show is fucking great.
I'm really happy that you and I both outlined that same cut.
If you weren't going to mention it, I was going to mention it.
Oh my god, I about to shit my pants watching
anytime Weasel is on screen is so fucking funny.
So good.
He kind of turns into a hero at the end, and in the last episode.
Jumps into water even though we know he can't swim.
Nobody checked if he could swim.
You learn things, and some characters that you thought might have died, you end up aren't dead, which I'm fine with. Usually in Marvel that pisses me off because it's happened a lot, but in DC it's kind of a new franchise or new studio, new cinematic universe, so I'm fine with it. But the one character, I don't want to give too much away, but the one character that dies in this episode the finale is one of the more upsetting aspects of the show. I think
didn't deserve it.
Yeah. And I think the show wraps up in a very good way, showing like, hey, these monsters know that the person that died shouldn't have. Like that was the best person of them.
Yeah, it's a great deconstruction of these monsters, quote unquote. And
even though they're all made by other people, they're all victims in their own right. So I fucking love this show. I can't wait to rewatch it. And David Harbour as Frankenstein just will forever be an MVP. And him showing up, we were talking about it before we recorded, when he's in the last episode finally gonna maybe get his reunite with his bride and have that moment that he's been so craving, and then the way it just plays out is so perfect. I fucking
it's
love
incredible.
the show.
Can't wait for season 2 of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
It's so good, and there's some loose threads that I hope that they clean up or tie up in the next season or stories to come. So I already, with this season just wrapping up, I can't wait. Moving on into some new releases, we have a list of movies that come out both January 10th as well as January 17th. Also, a couple of January 13th thrown in there because we kind of missed a couple of weeks doing our top 10 with last week's episode. But a movie that released January 10th is Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, which I know so many people are
Big
asking.
Nick is back.
Really got scared with what you were going to say there. I don't know anyone asking for this film. Releases January 10th, directed by Christian Gudegast. Gonna run with that. Who directed the first Den of Thieves, which I never saw. Heard it was just kind of a Heat knockoff, but it has Gerard Butler, who I like. Also stars O'Shea Jackson Jr., who is criminally underused in Hollywood. I loved him in Straight Outta Compton. He's a better actor than his dad. Big Nick is back on the hunt in Europe and closing in on Donnie, who I'm guessing is O'Shea Jackson Jr., who is embroiled in this treacherous world of diamond thieves and the infamous Panther Mafia as they plot a massive heist of the world's largest diamond exchange. It just seems kind of formulaic. I have seen fragments of the trailer. I have this weird love for Gerard Butler based on this one line reading in a trailer for, I believe it was Angel Has Fallen, that I think you and I saw this trailer at the same time in theaters, where it's very serious. And this person's getting a phone call, and the automated thing says, "You're getting a collect call," and it cuts to Gerard Butler's voice, "Mike! You're getting a collect call from Mike." I'm like, so intense. And I just, you know what? I've grown up with Gerard Butler in terms of like Gamer and 300 and other pretty bad action movies that he's been
Gods
in.
of Egypt.
Wow. Law-Abiding Citizen is good. I actually like him in The Ugly Truth, which is not a good movie, but I think is kind of underrated and enjoyable in its own way. But Corey, have you seen a Den of Thieves?
I haven't.
Okay,
but
sweet. Solid start.
I've actually heard that it's a somewhat fun action
Yeah,
movie.
I've heard it's good enough.
I think it's on Netflix right now,
Yeah.
so like I'm kind of tempted to watch it. I'm not going to see this in theaters.
I'm not either.
But Big Nick is back.
Big Nick is back. But also, both of these movies are 2 hours and 20 minutes plus.
Too long.
Too long already, just based on the premise. And I love heist movies. Some of my favorite movies are heist movies. We talked about Heat. Rafifi, which is a movie I love, and I'm happy I was able to get you to watch. But some of the most engaging, fun movies to watch are heist movies. Ocean's 8. Ocean's 8 is fine. Ocean's 11 is what I should have said. But yeah, I have no desire to see this.
Yeah, it's a January movie.
It's a January movie, and honestly, what I will say is, I think that this January, as well as last January, have kind of done a lot in terms of rehabilitating January as like a decent time to release okay movies, as opposed to just like the dumping ground for Hollywood. The Damned is a good enough movie. It's far better than most January releases, and from what I've heard, is that Den of Thieves 2 is also an alright movie. So it's better than dog shit. So
you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something else that's maybe a little bit more deep than Den of Thieves 2 Pantera with Big Nick, there is...
more deep, go to Pamela Anderson.
That's right. The Last Showgirl is a movie that has popped up on my radar as being kind of an awards contender, starring Pamela Anderson as a seasoned showgirl who must plan for her future when her show abruptly closes after a 30-year run. This movie is directed by Gia Coppola, who is a part of the Coppola family. She's the granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola, I believe the niece of Sofia Coppola. Nick Cage is her cousin, so they're all
just a big fucking family.
They're all there. This is a movie I'm actually really excited to see, and I was looking at some showtimes, and it's going to be showing around us. And it's expanding. It expanded on January 10th, so it had been in limited release for a bit. But a movie that I've heard Pamela Anderson is great in. I love that we're having a little comeback year for like her and Demi Moore. Some of these actresses coming back and giving some great performances. So one that I, besides the synopsis, don't know like a whole lot about. But one I'm really excited for, and I would love to see her get nominated for an Oscar even before seeing this movie.
I didn't know anything about this movie until I saw a promo of basically just Dave Bautista, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I didn't know anything about the story, and then I started hearing kind of the accolades rolling about Pamela Anderson in this film. I didn't know Jamie Lee Curtis was in this movie up until recent, so I think it is showing in theaters around us. I think maybe if we can find a break in playoff football this Sunday, we maybe try and go rip a showtime of Last Showgirl, which I don't know how fun of a showing that's going to be, but I think there's got to be some quality there, especially with Pamela Anderson getting kind of the accolades that she's been garnering for her performance. Another film releasing on January 10th, a film I have absolutely no ounce of interest in, Better Man, directed by Michael Gracie, who directed The Greatest Showman, which I think is a very underrated musical. I know a lot of people hate on P.T. Barnum, and they're just like, he wasn't a good person. I don't give a fuck. The movie's fun. Movie is about Robbie Williams, and it stars, I love that this note exists, Robbie Williams as a monkey. Yeah, I don't get that. Robbie Williams, obviously, I feel like in the U.S. doesn't have that much of like a big impact for us. At least I'm 24. I've barely heard of this fucking man in my life. I honestly did not know this movie was like a biopic. I thought it was just like, what if this monkey was a musician?
Singing?
Yeah. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Singing
7.
monk.
Yeah, singing monk. So I was like, okay, like whatever the fuck this movie is. And no, it's an actual biopic. And I'm like, all right, so you just decided to make this guy a monkey to make it interesting. Don't give a shit. The meteoric rise, dramatic fall, and remarkable resurgence of British pop superstar Robbie Williams. Does that sound like every other fucking musical biopic? It sure does. Will I see it? I sure won't. Don't give a shit. Even if he's a fucking monkey. That's a horrible sentence taken out of context. Corey, what do you think about
crazy,
Better
bro.
Man?
Yeah, I share a lot of the same thoughts. Robbie Williams, I was reading up on him just because I'd never really heard of him before. I guess he tried to make a run in the U.S. a few years back, and nobody really gave a fuck. So then he just went back.
Don't give a fuck.
Went back to the U.K. and I know he's set records for attendance. Taylor Swift this year was the first person to break attendance records at a concert because Robbie Williams has held them for decades, I guess.
Oh, I just assumed that was a long running, old artist, not someone current. Okay.
So either way, even if I got some of those facts wrong there, he's a very popular artist. I just don't really care about him.
The only thing that would get me into this theater is Michael Gracie, which I like The Greatest Showman a lot, but I like it enough to see this director's next work?
I think The Greatest Showman has great music. I don't think that movie is good. That's my take on that movie. It's a very popular movie, but
I will agree to the most part. I don't think it's a great movie, but I enjoyed it enough.
The songs are great.
The music is phenomenal in that movie, and it has a great cast. And anytime I get to see Hugh Jackman sing, I'm like, fuck yes, host the Oscars, please.
Hell yeah. So this is next release here is a little bit of a special one.
Modern day classic.
All right, that's pipe down. If you're looking for another fix in the Poonaverse, which
horrible,
awful name.
It's the same universe as The Last Showgirl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you're probably familiar with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. There's two of those things.
The second one is so good.
The second one was on my bottom 5 of the year. If you listen to that episode,
enjoy that second movie.
Yeah, I know.
And the first movie, I know I enjoy more than you.
You have a lot of brain damage, so that's
something had to happen.
But if you're looking for your next fix in that of these IPs that are in the public domain, we've got Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare.
Fuck yes, we
This
do.
is, as far as I know, it's releasing on January 13th. It's a one-night thing.
Which sucks.
Yeah, because the Vikings are playing that night. So not that we were planning on seeing this, but maybe we would have.
I would have.
Yeah,
I know I would have.
Yeah, you would.
And I would have told you about it, and then you would have saw it later on VOD, and then been
if
all right,
I wasn't doing anything, I would have definitely seen this with you. It's directed by Scott Chambers, who played Christopher Robin in the second Blood and Honey movie, so that's awesome. I don't know.
He's good in that movie.
Don't say shit like that. Don't say shit that's gonna piss me off. And say Scott Chambers is good in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey too. Okay.
In comparison to the way that it was played in the first movie, I think he did great. So
the second one is marginally better, but like I said
think it's
before,
so much better. I think that movie's so good.
Shit is still shit. This movie's like Peter Pan doing shit.
It's still shit.
And they're trying to set up Peter Pan and Pinocchio. They're doing one of those fucking movies, and they're trying to assemble this Avengers universe. I don't give a fuck.
The Poonaverse, yeah.
It's just a whole universe of this. Someday I will watch this movie, and I'm going to talk about it on this podcast because I know once I start watching movies in a universe, I got to finish it, and I hate that. That's my mindset.
This has potential to be my favorite Peter Pan movie because I don't like any Peter Pan movies I've ever seen. I don't like Hook. I think Hook is ass.
Whoa. that's a different conversation we can
Yeah,
have.
but I will see this movie at some point. I'm a little peeved that it's only showing on Monday when the Vikings have a semi-important football game that I'm majorly stressing about.
Very nervous.
Yeah, so otherwise I would go see this movie, but you know what? I'll catch it eventually, and I'm sure I'll make you watch it and hate me for it later.
Yeah.
But the big release in January, at least for me, it was my number 2 anticipated for 2025. Wolfman releases this upcoming week on January 17th, directed by Leigh Whannell, obviously maker of Insidious 3, which actually is one of my favorite of the Insidious franchise. Upgrade, which is the best Venom movie not named Venom. And, well, actually it's better than Venom 2. So, and also director of The Invisible Man. So I love his kind of resurgence with these classic horror iconography and making them into modern day classics, hopefully, because from what I've heard with early critic reaction, which sometimes you can't take all of them too close to heart, but reactions to this have been largely positive, at least out of the gate. The film stars Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner. It's the story of Wolfman. I'm not going to give you a synopsis. It's just a man who gets infected by something and his family is scared because he's starting to act weird and he's getting hairy and vicious, and it's basically
It's like
me.
you on a Friday night,
I was going to say, it's me.
Getting hairy and
It's
vicious.
me. Yeah, so I'm so stoked for this movie. I love Leigh Whannell. I can't wait. I think Christopher Abbott is one of the most underutilized, underrated actors working today. I wish he would be in everything. I wish he'd be the new Batman, but now seeing what Creature Commandos might represent Batman as, he's probably not thick enough. Corey, Wolfman, what do you think?
So excited. Can't wait to see this movie.
Can't wait.
I'm actually going to do a little rewatch, or not a rewatch. I've never seen any Wolfman movies. I've never seen the 1940s one, and it's like 2010,
Benicio
I think.
del Toro.
I've never seen that one.
Hopkins.
So I'm excited to watch through those, mainly the 1940s kind of like original Universal Monsters one.
I've kind of seen like a cult classic. Not like that it is a cult classic, but some resurgence of people being like, no, the 2010 Wolfman wasn't bad. And I'm like, I feel like as a 10-year-old, all I heard was that this movie was shit. So I kind of want to go back and watch that. I have seen the 1940s Wolfman. I do want to, I think, sit down and maybe try and, in preparation for this movie, see that Benicio del Toro one, just because I think the cast for that movie is insane. If that movie's bad, it's crazy, because that cast just should escalate it to a different level.
Yeah. No, so I'm really excited for that one. Maybe we'll try and see that together.
Yeah.
One that we probably won't see together is One of Them Days.
Mm-hmm. Opening day for me.
This is another one coming out on January 17th. And it stars Keke Palmer, Maude Apatow, Lil Rel Howery, who is a standout in Get Out, and really any movie he's in. But it's
hilarious.
When best friends and roommates discover that one of their boyfriends has blown their rent money, and the duo finds themselves going to extremes in a race against the clock to avoid eviction and keep their friendship intact. I've seen the trailer a couple times. It kind of made me angry, so
I've seen this trailer too many times.
Yeah, it's just one of those. I'm like, I'm not really interested in this one.
I will say I love Keke Palmer, especially in... Well, like, I grew up with Keke Palmer. She was on, like, Nickelodeon when we were kids, but I loved her in Nope.
Incredible.
She was amazing in that movie. And if I was going to see this movie, which I'm just not interested in, the trailer I've seen, I think, too many times to where it's just gotten annoying when it pops up. Hey, AMC, stop showing fucking 18 to 20 minutes of trailers. You're really ruining movies that I haven't seen yet. I'm not terribly excited for this, but if I were to see this movie, it would be for Keke Palmer, just because I have so much nostalgia associated with her, and everything I've seen her in, she has been excellent. And her high-fiving in Nope, that shot, that scene,
her and Daniel Kaluuya,
just fucking
Dope as fuck.
getting into it. That movie, I love Nope. It's underrated, and Keke Palmer is fantastic in that movie. Will not be seeing this movie opening day. Wolfman, I will probably be seeing it like 3 to 4 times before I see One of Them Days, just to catch a break before I see Wolfman for a 5th time. But a little bit of a physical media roundup. What we've purchased lately, I have gone on a bit of a bender, kind of catching up on some movies that I loved so much from 2024. Now I'm like, I need to own these. Starting off with hundreds of Beavers, I found a Blu-ray copy of that, so I pre-ordered that. I'm so excited to get that and watch it on a Blu-ray, because otherwise I watch it on Amazon Prime, and streaming pisses me off, so to have the physical copy of it and watch it off that, can't wait. Also, for some odd, dumb fucking reason, which me and Corey were talking about before recording, Conclave, the fantastic film with Ralph Fiennes, directed by Edward Berger, that came out back in 2024. Fantastic movie. For some reason, they released it on Blu-ray a while ago, and now the 4K is slated for a later date. So I pre-ordered the 4K Blu-ray combo pack. I don't get why they kind of disjointedly released a Blu-ray and a 4K for this movie, but I'm excited to get that regardless, just because I did really enjoy that film, and I think that is such a well-written movie. I also found Mubi released a Blu-ray of The Substance, which I did pick up, and I pre-ordered it and will hopefully have soon as well. One thing with Mubi, I didn't know if it was like Region B, Region A, all region, or whatever, so I had to look into that, which always is kind of a scary thing to have to dig through to try and figure out, hey, am I buying this movie and not going to be able to watch it at all on my Blu-ray player or not? So, but I do have that one also on the way. So Hundreds of Beavers for me on Blu-ray, Conclave 4K, and The Substance Blu-ray. Can't wait. I was almost going to buy another movie on my way over to Corey's here to record, but I did not get enough time. Corey, any movies for you this past week?
You know, I think I mentioned it the other week. I need to pay some money to get my car fixed, so that's sort of where my money has been going.
Is it the brakes still, or is it something else?
It's not the brakes. I brought it in, and because they told me before that it was the brakes, and then they were like, it's not the brakes, it's other shit. It's the valve gasket cover, and you need some other shit. So I'm bringing it in on Monday at fucking 7 a.m., and I'm not thrilled about that. Anyways, that's just
to tell them a different amount, or to have them tell you a different. Actually, it's this now.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, fuck it. But the three that you mentioned, definitely interested in buying. As far as stuff that's been released recently, gonna cover 2 weeks, just kind of with the gap there. On January 7th, we got the 7 in 4K, or 7 as other people call it. I think we talked about the re-release of that movie. It's great. And then We Live in Time, the A24 shop exclusive, a movie that I think is pretty okay, not as great as I wanted it to be.
I never saw that one. That's one that I've heard some, or with people putting together their top 10 lists of the year, I've seen it pop up on some, or at least in the honorable mention. So maybe that's a movie I'll go back and revisit.
For the great actors that are in that movie, the writing is not very good.
Okay, I love Florence Pugh, so
she's great, and Andrew Garfield are both good in the movie. Saturday Night, a movie that we both really like and think is very underrated.
Awesome
That's
movie.
coming out on Blu-ray. And then we mentioned it before, The Wolfman from 1941 is getting a sweet 4K steelbook, so that will, I don't know if I'll get the steelbook, but definitely a cool release if you're a big fan of that movie. And then January 14th, we got Inglourious Basterds coming out again in an Arrow Video 4K, I think a Blu-ray as well.
Mm-hmm. I saw that and I almost fucking picked it up.
Oh, it's such a sexy release of that movie. Snowpiercer, the Bong Joon-ho movie with Chris Evans getting a 4K release, Chinatown on 4K, and Once Upon a Time in the West on 4K. So yeah, a lot of library titles if you're looking to get some classic movies on 4K to add to the collection.
No new big releases in that January 14th release slot, but all those movies, Inglourious Basterds, Snowpiercer, Chinatown, Once Upon a Time in the West, those are fucking bangers. Like, damn.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see. What I have been really excited about is I feel like there's been a resurgence in getting good quality editions of good films, classic films, regardless, put out into the world. So I'm really excited by some of these more prevalent re-releases of films.
Hell yeah.
And hopefully to get more people to watch. Definitely Chinatown. That was a fantastic fucking movie.
Yeah, love that movie. All right, moving on to a bunch of awards stuff. We've had many things happening in the awards scene since we last did an update. I had the Golden Globes, which mentioned before, Emilia Pérez kind of cleaned up there. Got Best Musical or Comedy, because that music is awesome in that movie. And then Best Non-English Language Film, Supporting Actress for Zoe Saldana, and Original Song. The Brutalist also had a good night with Best Drama, Director, and Actor for Adrian Brody. The Golden Globes are always kind of like the first big award or televised award show, and it's always just the drunk celebrities. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Nikki Glaser was an okay host. There were some awkward moments with Vin Diesel and The Rock, which it was very funny, but just very weird.
Not intentionally funny either. Just like, what are you doing?
They've each had a few shots, and it's just like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
Not going to read through every award here. That would take forever. But there's three that I just wanted to shout out that made me the happiest of the night, which was Demi Moore winning for The Substance.
Awesome.
I think she deserves the Oscar this year. I don't know that she'll win, but her speech was also the best of the night. I thought it was really, really impactful. Colin Farrell winning for The Penguin in Best Limited Series or Anthology Series, however they label that. His speech also great. You guys know how much we love that show, so it's great to see him win. And then Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain getting supporting actor. He's kind of the front runner going into Oscars as well. So, and he was very Kieran Culkin in his speech, which is great. So, Very good. Really, Honora got shut out. That was kind of a big story here. Wicked only got the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Award, which I don't understand what that is, but it's there.
And what is your credential? How are you dictating who wins that? Is it based off of what was the best of this lot that were in the top 5 of this year, or is it the one that made the most? Like, I don't get how you dictate who wins that. I think it's a stupid award just to try and make your award show relevant, because I think the Golden Globes is the kids' table of awards shows. I think it is ass the way it's voted on, how many people vote in it, who votes in it. I feel like this holds very little weight. It's never an award show I pay much attention to, but typically in the past, especially when like Ricky Gervais hosts, I feel like they put on the best show, and I feel like it's something that the Oscars should try and take some notes from in terms of making their show a little bit more concise and a little bit more fun and interactive. And hey, Jimmy Fallon, quit making 30 fucking jokes that are padding the runtime. Can we just get the awards ran out and have some laughs with the people that are here, as opposed to just like escorting these people through the auditorium to a museum next door? Like, what the fuck's going on? But anyway, I'm ranting about something that doesn't need to be ranted about right now. The surprises for me, which it comes from a person that hasn't seen this film, so I can't really speak too much to it, but The Brutalist winning Best Drama, also Best Director with Brady Corbet, or Corbet, right? Yeah, Brady Corbet. And then also, what I have heard the most from The Brutalist was Adrian Brody being phenomenal in this film. So that wasn't a surprise to me. It's just, I haven't heard a lot of overwhelmingly positive things about The Brutalist, just mostly based on the runtime and kind of, there's an intermission split. And from what I've heard, the first part before the intermission is great. Second half kind of falls off a bit. So some people have kind of been torn on whether they like the movie or not. My big takeaways, best animated feature going to Flow is kind of surprising to me. Best score going to Challengers. I haven't seen Challengers, so if anything, that makes me want to kind of go back and see it. I know that the score was done by Atticus Ross, so big fan of his work. And Trent Reznor, yeah. Big fan of their work. Best screenplay to Conclave. Duh. I'm happy with that. Yeah. What a well-written and just riveting, thrilling movie that is just based solely around words. Love seeing Demi Moore win for The Substance. Another movie that kind of I wasn't that interested in seeing, and thought I'd maybe be able to escape award season with being like, you know what, I didn't make it to this one. It's fine. I'll catch it later. But now it's kind of popping back up into the conversation. I might need to see A Different Man, especially after seeing Sebastian Stan get some love for it. And I loved that moment with Anthony Mackie and him after he wins. He's like, Anthony Mackie running in during his interview, we won! And I'm like, oh, I love that.
Very sweet.
I think Anthony Mackie gets along with everyone in Hollywood, and I think he's an absolute delight. So yeah, I'm like I said, I don't pay too much attention to the Golden Globes, but some of these winners I am kind of excited by and interested in. As someone who likes Emilia Pérez, you're gonna say that that's a better musical than Wicked. To what Corey said, there's no song in Emilia Pérez that is better or competes with anything in Wicked. The worst song in Wicked is 10 times better than anything in Emilia Pérez, and that's coming from a fan of Emilia Pérez.
Preach, dog.
So, like, I feel like that's a play that they just made to get the views, as opposed to be a true voting body in terms of dictating who gets that award. That's kind of a wild win for me. Going into the SAG award nominations, those also came out. We do have some big ones in terms of lead actor, lead actress, supporting actor, and whatnot. What I wanted to highlight first and foremost, because otherwise I'm just going to be listing a fuck ton of names here that you get to listen to, but outstanding cast, which is kind of like almost their best picture, is goes to nominated for Wicked, Conclave, Honora, A Complete Unknown, and Emilia Pérez. One category I specifically want to highlight is lead actress, which goes nominations for Cynthia Erivo, Mikey Madison, Demi Moore, Carla Sofia Gasson, and Pamela Anderson, which kind of plays back to that last showgirl that we were talking about earlier. There's a lot of different nominations. I love to see Jonathan Bailey get a nomination for supporting actor, Ariana Grande for supporting actress, and then you also have Cynthia Erivo in lead actress. I think that there's a lot of good representation for Wicked here, also within the stunt ensemble and stuff like that. Corey, are there any big takeaways from the SAG Award nominations that are really surprising or otherwise make you really happy, at least really thrilled?
I think the thing for me is that I'm really confused this award season. Normally you have kind of some front runners. With this one, obviously, like you mentioned, the Globes isn't really an indicator. There's not a lot of overlap between that and Oscar voters. But in the SAG nominations, The Brutalist didn't get cast. Guy Pearce didn't get supporting actor nom. Felicity Jones didn't get supporting actress. That's really interesting that this movie that a lot of critics seem to really be into didn't get 3 big awards there. So that stood out to me. Jonathan Bailey, like you mentioned, very surprising. He's not going to get nominated for an Oscar, but
no, I don't think so either.
But yeah, very interesting. So obviously love seeing Coleman Domingo get in for Sing Sing. I'm glad that he's still hanging around in some of these big awards stuff, even if the movie won't get nominated a lot.
I hope it gets a Best Pick nom.
I hope so. It deserves it. It's so amazing.
I'm really happy. It hasn't had a lot of staying power with how early it came out this year, but I'm happy to see that it at least has some. Whereas I feel like Dune Part 2 is kind of falling off. You're not going to nominate Dune Part 2 for Outstanding Cast. You got Christopher Walken for it. I'm not going to list everyone, but Florence Pugh, like Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, like that, Austin Butler, like every person in that movie is a big like A-lister or B-list, like some of the best actors working today, and you're not going to nominate that. Whatever. Dune Part 2 came out in fucking March, so forget about it. Doesn't exist in 2024, I guess.
Yeah, it's frustrating for sure.
But I'm really happy to see Daniel Craig in lead actor. I love Daniel Craig so much. I would love to see him win an award. I don't know if he's going to necessarily, if he has enough kind of oomph behind him, and within this role, I feel like he's not getting enough kind of a push behind him for his work in this movie, which I think he was exceptional in Queer. I loved him in that movie. I love him in every movie, so I'm a little bit biased. But I am also really excited to see in supporting actor Yura Borisov, who was easily far and away the best part of Anora for me, as someone who likes that movie, it appreciates it more than really enjoyed it, but Yura Borisov stole the movie for me. I think he has such a quiet and lovable performance, and it's so sweet. And yeah, I'm really happy to see him get some love here, as well as supporting actors like we talked about at the top of the show with A Complete Unknown. Monica Barbaro getting some love too. Danielle Deadweiler getting some love. I'm pretty stoked with this. I hope lead actor, like I said, I want it to go to Daniel Craig. Don't think it will. If Ralph Fiennes could finally win an Oscar, I think that would just set the universe right. It would make everything balanced. It would just correct things.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a 3-horse race in lead actor with Chalamet, Ralph Fiennes, and Adrian Brody. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I still think Chalamet, if he was going to get nominated, and I don't know if you agree with this, because now that you've seen A Complete Unknown, I think he has a better performance in Dune Part 2 than A Complete Unknown, and I feel like that War Council scene alone, that is your Oscar clip. Yeah. Like I think he's getting nominated for the wrong movie. Not to say that his performance is bad; it's great, but I just think he was so good in Dune Part 2.
Yeah, had a hell of a year for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of a last award season stuff we had was the DGA nominations, the Directors Guild. Best Director the nominations were Jacques Audiard for Emilia Pérez, Sean Baker for Anora, Edward Berger for Conclave, Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, and James Mangold for Complete Unknown. That's kind of the
biggest surprise.
Yeah, biggest surprise here. Kind of leaving off this list, John Chu for Wicked, Coralie Ferget for The Substance, Denis Villeneuve for Dune 2. Those are kind of, I feel like, the other people on the bubble there. Other than that, it's pretty much what I expected in this category here. I always love the First Time Director Award because it highlights some up-and-coming directors, one of them being Megan Park for My Old Ass, which I love that she got nominated. Fantastic. She definitely deserves it. We've also got Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys.
Need to see that.
Yeah, really excited for that one. Sean Wang for Didi. Payal Kapadia for All We Imagine Is Light. And then Hafton Alman Tondel for Armand, which I'm not too familiar with. But yeah, this one, besides James Mangold, who, again, I don't know that he has a great chance for an Oscar nomination, but again, just another like confusing, just all of these different nominations coming out where I'm like, I don't have like a clear sense of even who's going to get nominated in some of these categories.
I know when it comes Oscar night, which something that has become a ritual for Corey and I every Oscars is we fill out a ballot and we kind of go against each other, which last year I think you won. You kind of, I think, handedly beat the shit out of me, actually, come Oscar season last year. I think the year before I got you, but it's going to be hard making, I feel like, picks after the end of this award show, or award season leading into Oscars. Obviously, DGA, that has more to do with directors, so it's going to kind of play in more to what we think it might lead to a frontrunner for director. I am so disappointed with some of the Best Director noms and not to see Denis Villeneuve. Again, I'm biased. Dune Part 2, like I said, is the best film I think that has been made since I've been alive. I think that movie is getting the shaft. It is just not getting represented. I think Denis Villeneuve consistently, every year he's made a movie, has made one of the best movies of the year. And he still without a nomination in terms of, Oscars at least. But I think this is criminal to put Jacques Audiard in here without Denis Villeneuve in here. I love James Mangold. I think that this man has never missed. I know you're glaring at me for Dial of Destiny. I really like that movie. I will understand that you don't. I still think he is an exceptional director, and regardless of, it's a commonality between him and Spielberg, where whatever genre he decides to tap into, he can do something really special in that genre. I'm really happy to see Megan Park as well for My Old Ass, because that movie is phenomenal. Me and Corey gushed about that movie. I hope she is able to win for that. I did not see a lot of these other. I haven't seen Nickel Boys, which is one I'm really eager to see still. So hopefully I'll be able to speak more about Ramel Ross and the direction in that film. Haven't even heard of Armand or All We Imagine as Light. DD, I'm so tired of the coming of age genre. Didn't need it. Passed on it. But with this nomination, maybe I'll go back and see it. I don't know. I honestly, if Sean Wang wins, then maybe I'll go back and see DD. But I've heard good things, but I'm tired of coming of age movies. As someone who is also glowingly reviewing My Old Ass and saying Megan Park should win for a coming of age movie, but whatever, I don't make sense. Yeah, I do like the DGA award nominations too. I put a lot of stake in those. Especially come awards season for the Oscars. Oscars, for me, my big award that I look to, aside from Best Picture, is Best Director. So I'm excited to see kind of how this overlaps into who gets nominated for Best Director. Corey, if you had to pick out of the Best Director noms, who made the best movie? Who is the best director of these 5 names? Granted, we haven't seen The Brutalist.
I think that would probably be my pick once I do see that movie. But of the ones that I've seen here, which is the other 4, I'd pick Edward Berger.
Yeah.
I think Brady Corbet and Sean Baker are kind of the front runners here for the Oscars, at least. So, again, it'll be interesting to see how award season plays out with DGA and Critics' Choice, which the awards were supposed to take place this Sunday, but they got delayed due to the California wildfires. So, obviously, shout out to everybody out there. Hope everybody's safe.
Yeah, that is something just horribly terrifying. Like, we live in Minnesota. The worst that we deal with is really bad snow or really bad temperatures. But when I got back from my honeymoon, I looked online and I saw, like, just footage of shit of what was happening out there, and, like, the fact that they have different fires and different names for the fires to track them. It's terrifying. And we're lucky to not live there. And for everyone that does live there, prayers out. Prayers out. I hope that you're able to find shelter, find some sort of sanctuary away from this, that you're able to be safe and with your loved ones. It's terrifying. And everything I've seen in terms of footage, it is truly just apocalyptic. It is terrifying. But yeah, whenever this award season really is able to kind of kick off with everything resuming, kind of like with what you've been saying, it is such a diversified field in terms of nominations, in terms of what's won so far. So it's just like, I don't know who's a front runner anymore.
It's kind of fun.
It's kind of fun. It's going to make Oscar night really interesting and more, which I much prefer, as opposed to like, it's one of these 2 names. And then you hear one of them and you're like, yeah, well, we knew that. Okay, so sweet. Get off stage. Like, I'm excited to see who ends up winning for some of these and kind of see how that plays into Oscar noms when those finally come out on January 19th. Moving into some more trailer news, kind of compact all 3 of these together because they're all horror films, but there's a Monkey trailer that dropped, as well as Hard Eyes and the new Companion trailer. I am relatively stoked for all 3 of these films. I will say the Monkey trailer, amazing for me. I loved it. If anything, it just, again, revamped me. I think the marketing campaign for the other Osgood Perkins movie that we got with Long Legs, the marketing campaign was superb for that movie. And the Monkey is just doing the same thing. It's just a bombastic horror fest of just what the fuck is going on, and I can't wait to see it. I think it's just gonna be some of the most gory, bizarre shit I've seen, and I can't wait. Hard Eyes, I love Josh Rubin. Can't wait to see this movie. I'm sure it's gonna be tongue-in-cheek, not slapstick, but good horror comedy that's definitely gonna lean more, I think, on the comedy aspect. If it goes more horror, thank you. If not, whatever. It's a horror comedy, and they mostly go comedy. The new Companion trailer, which is a movie I was originally really stoked for, I think this trailer, the second trailer, kind of gave a lot more away and for me has kind of lessened my excitement a little bit. Still really eager to see it, but now that I know more about Sophie Thatcher's character and kind of what the underlying story is between Jack Quaid and her, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm on board with
I think
this.
that first teaser they released is really cool.
Fantastic.
Really like that.
Stellar.
Hard Eyes looks like it could be a lot of fun, and the monkey looks really fun too. I love long legs, so cool to see Osgood Perkins going back-to-back years with movies. Another trailer that's coming out, or that did come out, is The Last of Us Season 2, which is a show that the first season is incredible. I'm working my way through the first game right now, and it's been so much fun to play through, and I am trying to finish that first game before Season 2 comes out. I don't really know a lot about the second game.
Don't play it.
I want to watch the second season before, but it's coming out in April 2025. Just got some good looks at some of the new characters in this. Really excited. I know we both watched the first season together and both really, really loved it.
Yeah, I love the first season. I've played through the first game entirely, and I love that game. It's one of my favorite games I've probably ever played. The only reason I say don't play Last of Us Season 2, not because it's a bad game. I think it is an exceptionally written game. I know a lot of people that kind of were pissed about some of the avenues it takes and decisions that are made and stuff that happens in that game. I think it is so well constructed. I've played the majority of the game, but otherwise I watched everything through a watch through of the game, and I know the overarching story of it. I'm excited to see how this upcoming season handles it. The trailer, I can't fucking wait. I'm so stoked for this. They could have lit a match in that and then cut to black in this trailer. I'd be like, fuck, I can't wait. Oh my god. So Last of Us Season 2 can't come quick enough. I'm so happy that we get it in April of 2025, only like 3 months away. In April, we're going to go see Kendrick, and we're going to have Last of Us Season 2.
Crazy.
My pants are wet. Like,
Crazy.
Oh my god. Oh, I can't wait. So,
Hell of a month.
It's going to be awesome. Please, 2025, be good to us. Another little bit of news that we kind of missed out on with a little bit of our break when we dropped those 2 episodes, or our last 2 episodes. Something that kind of got lost in the shuffle, at least on our channel. I know a lot of nerd culture has been talking about this for a long time because Jason Momoa had a meeting with James Gunn a while back, or a meeting with DC at least, and he came out kind of not hemming and hawing, but celebrating and really actually happy. He has been officially cast as Lobo in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which I don't know much about this character. I've really only seen the look of this character, as well as given some sort of kind of window into this personality of this character. And wow, does this character this is Jason Momoa just clad in black and gray. Like, this is some perfect casting from what I can tell. So I'm really excited to see how it works into Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Don't know what their dynamic is. Corey, what do you think about Jason Momoa as finally being cast as Lobo?
Well, I'm just glad my close personal friend Jason Momoa is getting some acting opportunities.
You have met him.
And when I say that, I met him with Mason's brother.
Yeah.
Mason's brother Blake, shout out if you're listening.
No.
But we...
Tyler listens to this and that's it.
What's up, Tyler? Fuck you, Blake.
Yeah.
But no, me and Mason's brother Blake... when was that? Like, was that last year?
That was
or
last
2
year.
years
That had to
ago,
be
or-
last year.
Fuck, I don't remember what
He
year it
was
was.
making his tour for his new vodka.
Yeah, so he put out a vodka, Melee vodka. It was
Which
called.
is
Incredible.
I don't like vodka, and I love his vodka.
It is incredible. So he was going on a tour. He was at a Costco in our area. So me and Blake went and waited in line to meet Jason Momoa, and we got signed bottles of the vodka. Got pictures with him. You can take like a little video with him. Just super cool guy. That's just a really fun memory, and I love seeing him cast in this role that just seems perfect for him. Really excited for this movie too. Actually, I've said before I like Millie Alcock a lot from House of the Dragon, so curious to see how he fits in with this movie. But definitely excited about this casting news.
Yeah. As someone who hasn't watched Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, I obviously don't have as much kind of exposure to Emilia Alcock, but from what I've heard, she's great. I've loved Jason Momoa since his very shitty, horribly done Conan the Barbarian movie that he was in like 2011 or whatever, around that time. I saw that movie in theaters with my mom, and I was fucking thrilled by it. So I can't wait to see Jason Momoa in just about anything, even Bullet to the Head. Fuck it. I don't care.
That movie's kind of
That movie's kind of fun.
The accent in that movie.
It's kind of like
him and Sylvester Stallone.
If you like the movie Cobra with Sylvester Stallone, you'll like Bullet to the Head.
It's kind of tight.
Yeah. But I'm excited to see him as Lobo because I remember like rumblings of that long before he was ever cast as Aquaman, and then he gets cast as Aquaman. It's like, really? Like, what the fuck are you doing? And then it's like, he should be Lobo, and now he's finally getting to be Lobo. Can't wait. Again, have no idea about this dynamic. Excited to see how it works out. Excited to see Supergirl. Can't wait, regardless. for the first episode recorded in 2025, finally winding down, thank you for sitting and having some liquor drinks with us for our 11th episode of Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram for more in-depth movie reviews where I talk a little bit more about His Three Daughters. I didn't say much in this recording. I did enjoy that movie to a degree. More reviews on that Instagram, as well as different movie news that we like to share. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast. You can also catch us, Corey informed me, on YouTube, which he so wonderfully started to do while I was on honeymoon, and I just got to get back from my honeymoon and be welcomed with this. Oh, we also have a presence on YouTube finally. So that is great. Hopefully we'll be able to start releasing videos of our podcast as opposed to just recordings, but catch us wherever you can. In the world of film, it's not just about what happens on screen, but also about who's sitting next to you in the theater. So from my best bud, Corey, and I at Slate Night, that's a wrap.